Hello, bonjour. Welcome to the Union Safety Net, le filet de sécurité syndicale, a union podcast for working people. I'm your host, Sébastien Bezeau, et oui, parfois en français aussi. This podcast is hosted by the Union of Safety and Justice Employees, le Syndicat des employés de la sécurité et de la justice. Join us for an informative discussion every month about issues currently affecting working people. In the decades following the Second World War, it became increasingly clear to Canadians that employment, immigration, and the economy were inextricably linked. Decision makers recognized that prosperity in this country was highly dependent on immigration. This not only led to generational policies that championed multiculturalism, it created a modern and resilient country. Though recently, immigration policies have created some, let's say, division between citizens. The Canada Employment and Immigration Union is a fellow component union within the Public Service Lines of Canada, and they represent workers from several front-facing departments that deal with immigration, employment, and public service, all crucial to Canadian society. Here with me today is Rubina Boucher, and she is the national president of the CEIU. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this Union Safety Net, Rubina. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Sab. I'm excited to be here. Ready to have some labor fun over here?
Yes, we are. And CEIU, Rubina, as you and I both know the history, it's been quite an active union component, great activism. It's been established since 1977. So can you give us a breakdown on the history, who your members are? Like, what does your union represent?
That's a good one. And absolutely. So we have over 34,000 federal government employees from across Canada. And our members are absolutely the backbone of some really crucial government services. So we represent three departments: IRB, the Immigration and Refugee Board, and we have the Immigration and IRCC, which is the Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada. As well, our largest department is ESDC, and that's the Employment and Social Development Canada. So these folks are members, CEIU members. They, like I said, administer some really crucial programs when it comes to IRB and IRCC. They're doing that hard work when it comes to immigration, making sure, talented folks that we need for this economy, that businesses and families need here, are coming in. And then ESDC, what we do there is we're making sure that our CPP, our Canada Pension Program, our EI, Employment Insurance Program, and our OAS, Old Age Security Programs, are in full swing and up and running, providing Canadians the services they need. And to add to that, we're also in front end. So we're the ones that you come and meet when you go into a Service Canada center. And we're the ones there, again, doing really good essential government work.
Your union members really provide public services to a wide variety of Canadian citizens. You're looking at the Canada Pension Plan, the Old Age Security, but then you're also looking at employment insurance. So, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of crucial public service here. But how has it changed over the last 5 decades? I mean, EI, employment insurance, as we know it, has been there for a long time. But like over the last few decades, how have things changed for your union and their members?
Well, that's a good one too. So a lot has changed, and we are definitely a component full of rich history and stories. Mm-hmm. Don't even get me started. We could be here all day. I would have to run a year of podcasts with you. I think some of the critical things to mention here is over the last decades, we shifted from a service model to an organizing model. So obviously we put, decision-making back into the hands of members. We make sure that they're available and ready at the local level. So that's a big change for sure.
And I know, Rubina, at some point way back when, Service Canada used to be known as what was like not an easy way, but like the way to get your foot into the federal public service, like an entry position to joining the public service. Is that still the case, or do you find that your members who are employed at Service Canada are actually staying longer now and not rotating around as much?
That's a really interesting question. And absolutely, historically, Service Canada has been seen as a stepping stone for those entry positions. And that's because we have the majority of our entry positions in that realm, right? I'd like to say, yes, it is still a stepping stone, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So a lot of our members, and this goes to our membership, how it's changed, we have a large base of equity deserving folks. So the majority of our membership are women, they're racialized, they're Indigenous, they're Black, they're 2S LGBTQIA+, and they're persons with disability. So when it comes to the systems at large, they're staying in these positions longer because they're not afforded the same opportunities when it comes to career progression and things like this. And also, let's be honest, seeing growth in this country, a lot of folks have no options but to stay where they are in these entry level positions.
And do you see any differences when you look at geography? I mean, Canada is so big and vast. When you look at Quebec, you look at the territories and then the provinces. Do you see any differences in terms of your membership and how they service Canadians? Or because every time you see an ad on TV, you always get the disclaimer at the bottom, exception for Quebec, right? So I mean,
yeah,
how does that apply for your members, right?
Well, I'm going to start with the big buzzword when it comes to return to work, parking. When we look at our offices, like you said, we're widespread. So we have folks in remote areas, but then we have folks in major cities. So we have folks who are going back to work and, they can't book a workstation and they can't find a parking spot. So that's major issues, obviously, in larger cities like Toronto, Ottawa, these places. But then those are not the same issues when it comes to remote workers, when it comes to remote locations. So folks in our rural areas, they're fighting against, safety concerns, being the only one in their office. And then they're also experiencing those challenges when it comes to having reliable internet, when it comes to effectively and efficiently being able to participate in not only union activity, but the actual work itself. And now I'm glad you brought up Quebec. Quebec is its own world for sure. We know that unionization rates there are among the highest in the country. I think what are we, around something like 40% over there?
If not higher. Vive la belle province.
The FTQ Federation is so strong. They've made such a great culture when it comes to labor, right? So our members over there, though, they're feeling the pain. They're seeing that union busting. They're fighting for their rights to be able to provide Canadians with services in French, being able to work in French.
While delivering important public services. Now, Rubina, let's go back in time a few years ago, COVID-19 pandemic. Were your members able to work remotely and deliver services to Canadians? How did that go back then?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really depended on the role. Like I said, our membership is really, really versatile. So we did still have those frontline workers in Service Canada sites going in and providing in-person services. They remained on the job without an interruption, and they were often facing some significant anxiety while still continuing to, uphold their services to the public. But overall, the majority of our folks, they were at home. They were working remotely. And as we know, with all the productivity reports, they were doing it efficiently and they were providing even better services to Canadians. So just like USJE, we here at CEIU, we believe and know remote works.
It does. It really does. Rubina, quick question. Have you ever witnessed a citizenship ceremony? I've heard so many stories about how emotional they can be, how special they are, intimate. Have you ever witnessed a citizenship ceremony yourself?
You know what? I have been thinking a lot about this lately. I recently just went into the site here in Windsor, Ontario, and I saw their citizenship room. And I thought, this is an experience I definitely have to join in.
Right?
Yeah. I can say I haven't been there. I haven't seen one, but our members are the ones that make sure that they run smoothly, and they're the ones involved from start to finish. So it's definitely on my bucket list. Hopefully one day we can go together, maybe.
Yes,
We can
because
figure
my
it out.
partner, he's actually applying for his citizenship now. And I had friends who used to work for IRCC and did these ceremonies. And, at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I made Canadians today. It's what she would tell me, right? Because she had a ceremony, but they're so special. So,
They're so special. And it's for the people and for the members too. For our members, they really they have a sense of pride when they're doing those ceremonies.
So much pride. It's crazy. Yes. Now, sadly though, and this is one of the main reasons why we want to chat with you today, Rubina, as Canadians know, the government announced that 3,300 positions within Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada will be abolished. So we're talking 3,300 jobs. That's a lot of people not processing, programs or whatnot. So this was obviously unexpected, and it's very disappointing, and it's also very stressful for people who are in the system, right? So no precise details of the plan for these announced cuts have been communicated. How do you anticipate it will go? What's the mood within your membership right now? Like what's the impact?
This is a tough one, Sab. Our members, well, first of all, it's absolutely shocking, right? This is devastating news. This is not only devastating for our membership, but this is devastating for families and businesses across this country, right? The unknown, the uncertainty. I can tell you that as a union, we were prepared. My goal here, I'm an offense player, never a defense player. So we knew we were at the table asking these questions at the highest level, getting no responses. And we knew what was coming. We saw the restructuring. We saw the stop the clock. And so we, as a union, we got prepared. We've been preparing for months because we knew if we had to swing into action, we were gonna do it right. So when it comes to our membership, we have been on the ground. We have obviously launched our WFA campaign. And the biggest thing here is making sure that we educate our membership. WFA was a hard-earned right that we won in our 1991 collective.
Sorry to cut you off there, but for Canadians who don't know what WFA is, and just so our listeners know, our next podcast episode will be specifically just on WFA because it is that important. So what is WFA and how does that relate to your members?
So WFA means workforce adjustment. And what this means is that indeterminate positions are impacted. So they're not guaranteed employment. There's a bunch of, again, this is a very complex part of our collective agreement. So this could mean layoffs. This could be mean reassignment. Again, the employer has been very hush-hush. We're trying to push them in making sure that they fulfill the requirements under both the directive and the collective agreement. But we're just taking this one day at a time.
Mm-hmm. And when you say you were ready, you were on the offensive. So what did your union do? What steps and tactics did you employ to get your membership ready for those WFA announcements?
Yeah, so I will tell you at our national union management tables, we were pushing for a workforce adjustment committee right once that stop the clock came. And we were being met by the employer. We were being met with, blank stares. Like, what are you talking about? Listen, as you know, USG is a very smart union, as are we. We're looking at the budgets. We're looking at what's happening in this economy. So we were pushing the employer at the table. And again, crickets. They brought this down at the last minute, and they're fulfilling the bare minimums of what they need to under this directive. So what we did, though, we knew we had to bring it back into the hands of the membership. So we started doing information and training sessions. I'm very proud to say that we have roughly over 160 locals, and we did a big stewards WFA training session a few weeks ago. We had over 160 stewards from around this country participate. Amazing. So that we educate from the ground up. So these are the folks that are supporting and understanding what this actually means. And it's working.
That's amazing. You're building an amazing support system capacity across the country because there are some options available to those members who receive those affected letters. But if you're not educated about your collective agreement and your rights, you just would never know. Now, it's affecting 3,300 of your union members. How will these cuts affect Canadians? Do we know? Is it like 10% of those? Well, it's all between immigration, refugee, and Citizenship Canada, but do we know how it will result in the impact of service delivery? The government probably doesn't even know, right? The employer probably doesn't even know. So, I mean, it's not fair to ask you, but we know it's going to result in service cuts, service delays. It's not going to help in terms of service delivery. But I'm just looking if you have any concrete example on how Canadians may see these cuts affecting them in their daily lives.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just say we know that cuts hurt the most vulnerable. So they're going to hurt everyday people in this country, regardless if you access these services or not. And let me kind of paint a picture for you here. Who are the folks that are bringing in the doctors and nurses into this country that we know we need? Who are the folks that are bringing in the skilled laborers here because there's a shortage? Who are the folks that are making sure that our agriculture is able to run? Those are my members. Those are CEIU members. So when we look at the impacts on Canada as a whole, I think it's clear. You cut the jobs. You've already got backlogs, which are the highest that we've ever seen at IRCC. What's going to happen? It's going to have a trickle and ripple effect on all things across this country because we already don't have enough people to do these jobs.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. But I think what you also said is key is that it's the most vulnerable that will be impacted by these cuts. I mean, it's not these CEOs and whatnot that go to IRCC to obtain any program funding or assistance, right? Rubina, last question. Let's look at the future now. So with isolationism on the rise, if we enter an era of deglobalization and restricted immigration, how do you think Canada will be affected? $1 million question to end this interview.
This is $1 million question. I might not have $1 million answer, but I think it's obvious, and we've already kind of stated it, right? Isolation for a country like Canada doesn't work. If we're restricting immigration, then that means that we're going to face major labor shortages, right? And it's going to impact everything again, from healthcare, construction, tech. And these are the industries that we need people in. This is Canada. Our members work to attract that big talent into this space, right? So if Canada moves to shutting down our borders to these people, I think it means we risk basic economic stagnation.
Yeah. Well, Rubina Boucher, National President of the Canada Employment Immigration Union. It's been such a fun time having you on the Union Safety Net, just chatting with you. Thank you. You're more welcome to join us any given time to give us an update on your members. We'll be keeping a close eye, especially with those cuts. To all your members of CEIU, thank you for doing what you do day in and day out, delivering crucial services to Canadians that are the most vulnerable, who need it the most. So thank you to your union members. Rubina, do you have any last words for our listeners today?
You know what, Sab? It's been an absolute pleasure. A big thank you to yourself and to David. USJE and CEIU, we have got a lot in common, and I'm looking forward to how we move into the next round of collective bargaining and really hit a home run.
Union solidarity.
Absolutely.
Merci. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Union Safety Net, le filet de sécurité syndicale, a union podcast created by USJE for working people. If you have any feedback on today's episode or would like to suggest a topic you want us to cover, please reach out on social media platforms. We love to hear from our listeners. I'm your host, Sébastien Bezeau, and I hope you'll join us next month for another episode of the Union Safety Net, le filet de sécurité syndicale.